if you're a wrestling fan. So I've a page of notes here. I don't know if we'll get through it all, but should we take a crack at it?
Absolutely. Like, it's by going to the past, which we normally do, and that's totally cool, and it's kind of our wheelhouse. But um, sometimes we have to jump into the future and now, or the present, as it were.
Well, particularly when we're the ones who called it. The
Yeah,
big news this week, we'll get to it, but we called it months ago.
we did, and let's just start there because it is the huge news. So first things first, it was supposed to be AEW. Well, had the announcement, right? They're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And we're like, "Yeah, man, this doesn't smell right to me." And sure enough, Tony Khan came out, and not only did they buy the tape library, not only did they buy the All Out or something, they bought the whole effing
Whole
thing,
enchilada.
the whole lot. So as you can see here on the screen, folks, AEW have bought Ring of Honor.
And the question now is, like the dog chasing the car. Now they've caught it. What did they do with it?
Well, that's it. It opens up a whole. I did really enjoy the Shane McMahon thing where he's like, "No, Shane's not coming." No, it's just.
Is it Tony? He's so weird because I actually love him on the. Do you know the post show kind of media scrum they do?
Yeah.
But whenever he tries to do any kind of wrestling promos, he's such a goofball.
Oh man, it's so awkward. It was just so you could tell that like he's not comfortable, but that's totally fine too. And I was
It's
just
kind of endearing.
yeah, man. I was just like, oh, I don't particularly like him, but I thought this was kind of funny, and that line kind of killed me a little bit. I was like, ah, this is great. But look, it wasn't a surprise. We called it like literally almost to the week. We said this is what's going to happen, and it did. So news broke on Wednesday. They had an announcement, and it's like it has to be this. Some people were like, well, they're probably going to buy the tape library, and after the tape library, they're gonna, they might buy All Out. Yeah, because obviously that was or All In. Sorry, was the first pay per view that would become AEW, but there was no AEW, so
Yeah.
it was run by
It,
Ring of Honor.
well, it made so much sense. Like when you think about it, like there's all this talk about AEW setting up, some sort of network or streaming service in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
They have, they're going to want that back library of classic, Punk matches, Danielson matches, like,
Yeah.
and there's even talk in terms of the streaming service that they're also looking at not buying but doing a kind of a deal with PWG. So it's basically the whole elite history that they're picking up.
A couple of years ago, I think this would have made more sense for WWE to pick up, but now there's no real reason. Like, why would they need it? Why would they? They don't want to draw attention to anyone who isn't, the cartoons that eventually they're going to make, voiced by Roman Reigns. But
but well, yeah, like why would they why would they want to show everybody how great Danielson is, how great Punk is? Like it doesn't. Sorry, excuse me. It doesn't make sense for them to do, and also it's just not in their kind of worldview. It's WWE, and that's it. There are no outside entities.
exactly, and look, that's fair enough. As far as what WWE want to do, they can do it. But what's interesting about this move is it's now quasi created an alternative of non-WWE. Like anything that isn't WWE is going to probably be on here eventually if it is a streaming service. There are some talks that it's probably going to go on
HBO
HBO.
Max.
Yeah, I heard it from the Observer. Observer were pretty much laying it out, and they're like, yeah, it's going to go on HBO Max, which we don't have, but
Yeah,
I don't know how it's going to work here.
I suppose they could end up with a network style situation where that's their deal in North America, and then in the rest of the world they just have like an AEW streaming service.
Now, if I was AEW, and I'm not, but what I would do is I would link up with Impact and do a licensing thing where, imagine that, dude. You have AEW, ROH, and Impact on one streaming service.
I'm with you, man. I would.
That's incredible. That's
pull
such
in
good value.
PWG, CZW,
and I'd pay it. I'd genuinely pay it. I'd pay at least what I'm paying for the network for that, because that is such good value.
Yeah, and it makes sense with because they don't ban their wrestlers from working with other companies. It makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you have John Moxley's CZW cage match on it?
Mm.
Like, so I think what they could build is a real, genuine wrestling alternative. Like, this is where the wrestling happens. This is
Yeah.
where you get from your major AW pay-per-views down to your smaller indie shows,
Yeah.
and it's good
But
for them in
but
terms of
but I mean like
wrestlers.
if you're sitting there, like Ring of Honor had this, like people are going to see Ring of Honor who've never seen Ring of Honor before because it was hard to find. Like over here, it's almost impossible to find. AEW to a certain extent is pretty hard to find now and then. I mean, legitimately, and Impact is literally impossible to find, legitimately, in
Yep.
lots of ways. So you kind of have to find other ways around it. And I think, wouldn't it be really cool to have something where you can just have there, where the shows are uploaded, you can get the pay-per-views, and you're given this stream of content, which not only take the legality out of it, because that's one thing, but I mean the accessibility. Like if you're just sitting there and going, right, I want to watch, the Impact show. Like I watched No Surrender 2 weeks ago. Brilliant show, really really good show. Very hard to find.
Oh yeah.
Very very hard to find. Now, I would gladly pay for that on some kind of streaming service that also included the weekly shows or whatever. That wasn't Impact. The Impact app is actually quite good, but I mean, the appeal of it is limited. Opening up,
But
and I have used it, and I do use it, and it is quite cool. But the appeal of it is quite limited to a wider audience. If you're saying, right, random wrestling fan who just knows WWE, right, who just has the network, who maybe is disillusioned, wouldn't it make more sense to have an app that has that in it, and you can just go, right, for €15 a month, you get all the back history of all the favorite top stars of not only AEW, but like you can get AJ Styles, you can get Seth Rollins, you can get Moxley, you can get all that kind of stuff as well, but also Impact Wrestling, who are still doing shows, Ring of Honor, who aren't dead. Because this is another part of this story. They're not dead. They're still going on. So you still get their shows. And I think that would bring in a whole new audience that might not specifically be like we are with the WWE Network. We're not particularly WWE fans anymore, but we're still subscribed to Network for WCW, ECW content, Dragon Gate. This is
Bret Hart matches.
no, but this is kind of the way to do it. And here's the thing. I would even expand out further. Like WWA, we've talked about on the show many times. Why not just buy WWA's type library? Actually build. If you want to be a competition to WWE, be that competition, but be it in such a way that Vince doesn't consider anything that isn't WWE competition or that nearly beat WWE competition. Cool, use that for your advantage. Actually go and build a competitor to the WWE network that makes it worth buying. And what I mean by that is, if you're an AEW fan, you're going to buy it. I wouldn't buy an AEW app, but I would buy an AEW app if it had these extra elements, because it would be beneficial for me, because I can go and watch my Impact Wrestling shows. And also, again, everybody benefits. Think of it as the Netflix approach. I don't know if you remember, man, but remember when Netflix first came out, and the reason why you got Netflix was because it had everything.
I'm that old. I remember when Netflix used to post the DVDs.
All right, remember when it first came out on streaming, and everybody originally got it because it had everything. No matter what you wanted to watch, it was there. And that's kind of not true anymore.
Before they did this bloody regional mapping thing where you can only see stuff in certain countries.
Well, not even that. Like, geo-blocking's always been a thing, but I mean, if you wanted to watch The Office, you could watch The Office. If you wanted to watch The Simpsons, you could watch The Simpsons. If you wanted to watch Daredevil, it was there. And now they're all broken off into like Disney and Amazon and with wrestling. But with wrestling, if you have the WWE network, and instead of all these other little apps, you just have one other one that's that's a similar size behemoth.
Yep. The only outlier, I think, and I think they could pull in all those smaller independents, and those like shows like CZW and that will be mad not to do it.
Yeah.
The only outlier I think will be New Japan.
Well, New Japan is
Um,
completely different.
they have their own
Yeah.
streaming network. By
New,
all accounts, it does quite well.
yeah.
So even though there's a level of crossover there, I wouldn't expect New Japan to be on it.
Well, New Japan is the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, so they're fine.
Yeah,
They're
grand.
fine. You know, they don't need the West. You know, they genuinely don't. But I mean, for North America, for European, um, you know, as far as I'm concerned, WWE and most people would be concerned, WWE have kind of given up the wrestling thing. They're just WWE.
Yeah, and that's
So
the way. It's not even given up. That's the way they want it.
absolutely, yeah. But I mean, like,
Fair
there's
play.
no, but there's no room for someone else to step in and go, right, well, you don't want to do the wrestling thing, we can, and that's what AEW are doing. Like,
And I think Tony Khan is genuinely the man to do it, because love him or hate him, I don't think anyone would deny that he's not just a huge wrestling fan. Like, the dude loves the industry, like genuinely loves it.
yeah, no, absolutely. Like, he is, like, for all the stuff that I will give him and the hard time I will give him, he doesn't strike me like he's trying to do this in any bad way. There's no malice in him. He's not trying to get himself over. He just genuinely likes wrestling.
Yeah, I think he just wants to preserve, like, there's a huge wrestling history out there that WWE just doesn't cover, and I think he just wants to preserve that.
I just think WWE just doesn't want to cover it. They just don't care. They're like, we're WWE, we're gonna do what we want, and either you like it or you don't.
Yeah, and like, again, that's fair enough. I mean, that's their. I don't necessarily like. I mean, they're kind of competition, but I don't really agree with the claim that AEW and WWE are competition. I think at this stage they're just two completely different things.
Yeah, no, and I see. I think that's the appeal of a streaming service like this, because, you know, it's literally not the WWE. It's everything in the WWE that you normally wouldn't expect to see, because they don't do that kind of stuff. It's their own thing. So again,
and it means we can go back and review classic Ring of Honor shows now.
Yeah, and also Impact shows and all that kind of good stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it makes the most sense in the world, and fair play to AEW for doing it, because it's very forward thinking. Now, so this obviously is the biggest news. It's the biggest.
Well, just before we go off it, something I wanted to raise with you.
Yeah.
So that they haven't revealed how much money they spent on it. I've heard everything from 10 million to 60 million.
I don't think it's 60 million. Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine so either. But I'm just saying that's what's been put out there.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, no matter what way you cut it, that Ring of Honor cost more than WCW, and that's mental.
Well, that's because WCW had no value when it was sold. When Ring of Honor still had value. You know, it still had a name, it still had a TV show, it still had options. WCW didn't. WCW was dead, and that's what they were saying. It was effectively worthless, because, like, to be fair, man, you know, you could have got a loan from the bank ourselves and bought WCW. Like, legitimately, you know.
Eric Bischoff wanted to.
That's what nearly happened, and it's just because it had no value. Like, with Ring of Honor, they're still doing shows. They're still Ring of Honor. They're just bought by someone else, and that's one thing to mention. Like, it's a very good point. It's a very good point that I wasn't even thinking of. Ring of Honor are still existing as Ring of Honor and still doing shows.
AEW's Ring of Honor or AEW present. It's not WWE ECW or anything like that.
It's just Ring of Honor. Like, yes, they own the assets. Yes, they own the library. Yes, they own the IP. But apparently, the plan is to just continue. Actually, it's very funny. I don't know if you listen to independent music, but Bandcamp is where you would, like, where lots of independent bands would put music. It's where my band stuff is as well. And something happened this week.
The night I won the Bard of Armagh on Bandcamp, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gas. But basically, the thing about Bandcamp is it was bought by Epic Games this week.
Oh, wow.
So, and the email that everybody got was, it's going to continue on like normal. So, I mean, like, it's not changing. It's just owned by corporation. And I think that's
do you think that's what'll happen? Like, because a lot of people are talking about Ring of Honor being like their new developmental, and I think that
Maybe,
kind of does it a
maybe.
disservice.
Yeah,
But I can certainly see a lot more crossover. Because if there's one thing AEW needs, it's it's their guys, especially the lower level guys, the people they're building up. They really just need reps. You know,
yeah.
they need to be out doing shows in front of audiences. And I mean, this makes sense.
Well, see, I think with WWE now fully closing up shop to the whole wrestling thing, and I'm not being dismissive. WWE don't really care about the wrestling. It's not a thing for them. It's more WWE, and territories closing, NXT not being that place anymore, and also WWE just not. And they are the biggest wrestling company in the world. They always probably will be until they decide they don't want to be anymore. Um, and what's interesting about that is they kind of dictated, right, well, where are people going to work? You know, so having Ring of Honor there as your feeder system, where that goes into Impact and Impact goes to AEW. I think that's kind of what you'll see going forward, where they have this feeder system, but with TV the whole way through, where you're wrestling in a bingo hall or whatever, or independent shows, or you go to Japan, then you come back. There's somewhere for you to go. There's two very distinctive places to start off. You know, indie, mid tier before you go to AEW, and then you're there. What they've done is they've effectively they've cut WWE out of the picture by just doing what WWE you would think should be doing, but they don't.
Yeah.
So you know,
No,
I tell
it's
you, I tell you, man. Sorry for interrupting you.
no, go ahead.
I can see Triple H genuinely showing up one day and be like, "Can I just run this?" You know, because I think that would happen. I can
Triple
genuinely
H
see this.
Triple H shows up on AEW while Cody's on WWE.
Well, there are. That's our next story. So
Yeah,
moving. So let's move on to the next story. So the next story comes our way from 2 weeks ago, and from the New York Post. The New York Post reporting Cody Rhodes leaves AEW with WWE return likely.
but the latest news today is that and this is the quote from Dave Meltzer, that the talks between Cody and WWE have fizzled out.
Yes, yes. So
So
Martin,
nobody knows where he's.
I don't think he's going to WWE, my friend. Like, I really want him to, so he'll be Stardust again. But I don't know. I think he made enough money. Okay, look, there's one or two ways this could play out, right? It wasn't a work. It was real. Apparently, what happened was, according to the Observer, who they pretty much went through it. Solid Monster also did it as well. Apparently, it was a pay dispute, right? Where
Yeah.
what more than likely happened was he saw the money that Danny Bryan was getting.